The Heritage of 1848 by Matyas Rakosi. The following speech was given by Matyas Rakosi on March 15, 1948 at a large celebration meeting held in Budapest to honor the revolution of 1848. At the time, Hungarian People's Democracy was fulfilling the 3-year plan, and today it is victoriously fulfilling the 5-year plan, the 3rd year of which is currently ongoing. The 5-year plan is the People's Democracy's path to a flourishing, powerful, cultured socialist Hungary. Quote, "There are times when the most important thing a nation has are memories." Unquote. Allow me to quote these words of Lajos Kossuth when together with the whole people I reminisce on the revolution that began 100 years ago and compare the problems of today's People's Democracy to the issues of the great historic year 1848. That Hungarian People's Democracy recognizes as its own the ideas of 48, that it wants to complete its goals and develop them further, is best proven by this enthusiastic mass meeting of hundreds of thousands, and the celebrations being held in all cities and municipalities around the country to honor the revolutionary events of 100 years ago. Such a universal mobilization of the people, such a deep and genuine memory, can be evoked only by ideas that the people still hold unchanged even today and still recognizes as its own. But Hungarian democracy is clear-headed and critical. As regarding certain parties, it doesn't merely look at what they recognize and proclaim about themselves, but most of all it looks at how they work and act, so it also analyzes its own feelings and goals, compares them with the facts of the past 100 years and of today. During the quarter century before the liberation of our country, there was such a chasm between proclaimed words and actual deeds that we can only add to the credibility of our democracy by comparing the facts and experiences of the Revolution of 48 and our own activity. What was the most important goal of Hungarian progress 100 years ago? Quote, "State sovereignty and self-determination of the homeland, a free people in a free country," unquote, answers Kossuth. State sovereignty had to be achieved in a fight against Austria, which was keeping our country in the position of a colony. The sovereign homeland could provide freedom only by overthrowing the feudal aristocratic rule, which kept the majority of the Hungarian people in serfdom. The bourgeois revolution of 48 took this as its goal, and to achieve it, Lajos Kossuth proclaimed and also gained the unity of the nation, the alliance of the liberal middle nobility, the peasantry, and the urban working people. The country's sovereignty and internal liberation were inextricably tied together. Until the country was liberated from the Habsburgs, the serf could not become a free peasant, and the artisan still lived chained by the guild system. This coinciding of national and social goals strengthened the unanimity of the Hungarian people. This gave the freedom fight a unity and enthusiasm which we don't find in revolutions of other countries. This made possible the victorious battles that the people of Hungary are still proud of today with good reason, and which could only be defeated by the alliance of two reactionary great powers. The defeat of the revolution was not caused exclusively by the combined superiority of forces of the Tsar and the Austrian Emperor, but also by the internal weakness of the national alliance of the time. A significant number of the city workers couldn't even speak Hungarian. The industrial working population was small in number and politically immature, and couldn't find a path to an alliance with the peasantry. The enthusiasm of the peasantry was blunted by the fact that the achievements of the revolution were often left on paper. The emancipation of the serfs proceeded slowly, as the nobles who went to the Diet were mostly interested only in the sum of the emancipation price and being able to keep as many of their old privileges as possible. They were part of the reason why the radical democratic representatives of the actual people, Petöfi and Tancsics, were less and less able to influence the course of the revolution. We, the Democrats of the People's Democracies, took to heart lessons of the revolutionary events of 1848. When, in the darkest years of Hitler's robber war, we again, in accordance with the heritage of Kossuth, raised the issue of the uniting of our nation in the name of the sovereignty and rise of our country. In the People's Front, the principal role went to the class which was weakest in 1848, but had since grown large, the industrial workers, which was able to carry out this historic duty due to its central role, organization, and political experience. The alliance of the workers and peasants was now possible, and with the help of the industrial workers, the peasantry finally gained the land from which it was driven in 1849, after the revolution had suffered defeat. the land reform of 1945 proves better than any words that people's democracy is not only the inheritor but also the continuation and completion of all that the heroes of 48, Kossuth, Petöfi and Tancic set as their goal. And the further continuation of the liberation ideals of 48 is signified by the nationalization of large factories, mines and banks, as a result of which the productivity of labor no longer adds to the undeserved income of the profit-hungry capitalists, but serves the interest of the community. Likewise, we act in the spirit of the great heroes of 48 when we open the doors of higher schools and universities to the worker and peasant children who were previously almost totally excluded from culture, when we recruit into the army, the police force, to the government, to the economic and political key positions in ever greater amounts, ever more accomplished sons of the working people. These and similar actions taken in the spirit of 48 have created miracles in Reconstruction, have quickly lifted the ruined country to its feet. They have consolidated a true people's alliance which has drawn to itself not only the best elements of the workers and peasants, but also the progressive intelligentsia, the essential professionals, the hard-working small shopkeepers. On the basis of this people's alliance, it was possible to oust the enemies of the people from the open and concealed positions step by step, without any great crises or shake-ups. The defeat of reaction increased the tempo of Reconstruction, made the 3-year plan possible, further strengthened the people's unanimity. There is something symbolic in the fact that exactly on the 100th anniversary of March 1848 takes place a tremendous strengthening of Hungarian democracy, the decisive step towards the unification of the two workers' parties. I think it is hardly necessary for me to explain what the organic unity of the working class means for people's democracy. And also on the 100th anniversary of the great March days, we are seeing the birth of the unity of the youth, the unity of democratic women. The working people of Hungary can see ever more clearly, based on the 3 years of our democracy, that the path we stepped on after our country's liberation is correct. One demonstration of this is the flow of people towards the initiator of Hungary's rebirth, the Hungarian Communist Party, which has been taking place both in the countryside and in the cities. And it is demonstrated also in the feeling that the union of the nation's forces must be further strengthened. The People's Independence Front must be reorganized on a broader popular basis, so that it would speed up the great work of our country's reconstruction and make it even more victorious. Hungarian democracy can proudly and with justification proclaim itself the guardian, implementer and continuator of the great traditions of 48. The Hungarian people are acting in the spirit of those traditions when it launches the great production competition on the 100th anniversary of March 15th. Many hundreds of thousands of working people of town and country have voluntarily and enthusiastically entered the production competition. Enthusiasm for work washes over Hungary like a mighty wave. This new creative movement grows and deepens daily, demonstrating the self-sacrifice, devotion and political maturity of the working people. May those Western critics, who begrudgingly acknowledge the great achievements of our reconstruction work, but otherwise always make complaints about Hungarian democracy, take note of this production competition and learn. 100 years ago, Kossuth proclaimed, quote, "Now the people have become the masters of its own destiny," unquote. Today the slogan of Hungarian democracy is, quote, "The country is yours, you'll build it for yourself," unquote. This slogan is being implemented by the Hungarian worker, peasant, progressive intellectual, the ordinary person. He understands that every hammer blow, every slash of the plow, advances simultaneously his and the homeland's rise. Consciousness of the fact that the drab everyday work and the uplifting of the people to flourishing are directly tied together is growing the work competition into such a large movement that it even today boldly rivals the popular election for democracy. The Hungarian democratic government acts profoundly in the spirit of 48 when it establishes the prize named after Lajos Kossuth, which will be given to heroes of reconstructive work, individual initiative and joint exertion on the 15th of March. When, along with scientists and artists, we also award heroes of the struggle for coal, bridge builders, textile workers, exceptionally hard-working and accomplished peasant pioneers, small farmers and agricultural cooperatives, we are again demonstrating that we are correctly and successfully applying to our day the spirit of the great events of 100 years ago. The economic and political triumphs of Hungarian democracy in the past 3 years have changed our foreign policy situation. Kossuth could state with good reason that, quote, the Hungarian liberation struggle from its very beginning was impactful even far outside our borders, interested all of Europe. Our struggle encompasses the struggle for the liberty of Europe, unquote. The victorious battles of Hungarian democracy against Hungarian reaction influence, albeit less than 100 years ago, the struggles waged by the peoples for peace and independence of their homeland against American imperialists who desire world conquest and their reactionary European vassals. In the same proportion that we defeated the supporters of the old nobility system in our country, our prestige has grown among freedom-loving nations. In 3 years, we fought to turn our country from Hitler's last ally into a respected member of the People's Democratic Nations. A genuine friendly attitude ratified by treaties ties us to our neighboring peoples, among them to our liberator, the Great Soviet Union. We are equally proud that not only People's Democratic States have sent official delegations to this 100-year anniversary celebration, but we have also received representatives of the heroic Greek liberation fighters, as well as the best Italian and French partisans. Fortunately for Hungarian people's democracy, the international situation today is totally different from 1848, when European reaction stood against our liberation struggle and could mobilize our neighbors. In vain, Kossuth wrote, quote, unity, mutual understanding, brotherhood between Hungarians, Slavs, and Romanians, that is my most fervent desire, unquote. And in vain he said about the Danubian Federation that, quote, these nations cannot be our enemies, together or separately, if they are free, unquote. Unfortunately, they were not free. They were liberated only after the Russian people broke the chains of Tsarism, and the mighty Soviet Union freed them from the German fascist yoke. Only then could Kossuth's most fervent wish, the brotherhood of Hungarians, Slavs, and Romanians, become a reality. An expression of this brotherhood is the mutual aid treaty that we signed 3 years ago in Moscow, in the presence of the great leader of the Soviet people, Generalissimus Stalin. The complete change of the situation is demonstrated by the fact that today we laid flower wreaths in gratitude not only on the statues of Kossuth and Petöfi, but also to those Soviet heroes who fell on Hungarian soil and helped the liberation of our country with their own blood. The People's Democracy is the implementer of the Revolution of 48, also because it has chosen the state form of the People's Republic, and is peacefully and tenaciously building a new life, away from which neither temptings nor threats can make it swerve. To the tempters we respond with Kossuth's words, quote, a self-conscious people won't become another Esau, who sells the inheritance of his fathers for a plate of pea soup, unquote. And we won't forget that Kossuth described the heroic deeds of 48 like this, quote, in the breast of our people was the protecting spirit of great deeds, self-sacrificing patriotism, which turns small persons into giants, unquote. The Hungarian democracy has been built with their blood and sweat, by the grandchildren of the defenders of our country in the year 48. Workers removed mines from the ruined factories, often at the cost of their lives, before they could begin the work of reconstruction. Hungry and with ragged clothes, suffering cold and heat, they rebuilt the exploded bridges. The putting into action of each factory, each farm household, is the history not only of human hard work and ingenuity, but also of heavy sufferings and sacrifices. After the martyrs of the liberation fight, hundreds and thousands of new martyrs have died of tortures or suffered bitter years in the prisons of the reaction. Every rock, every achievement of Hungarian democracy is dear to us, and we will protect, defend, and raise, like history can expect from the grandchildren of the freedom fighters of 48. The liberated people of Hungary owes its respect and recognition with grateful hearts to the brave men who 100 years ago unfurled the flag of progress and emancipation of the people and raised it high. That tricolor flag, which already 100 years ago showed that our nation was in the front ranks in the life and death struggle against the dark enslaving force of history. This flag we grandchildren hold firmly. With it millions of workers march confidently, with determination and sure of victory towards a better future. The road of the Hungarian people has opened. Our historic role is to implement and complete everything that the heroes of 1848 fought, with Kossuth, Petöfi, and Tancsics in their front ranks. Proudly we accept this historic mission, and we have decided to fulfill it. We won't fear obstacles, we won't spare sweat or sacrifice. We will fulfill the bequest of 48, an independent, thriving republic of free, happy Hungarians.